Good morning. I'm, as Pierre said, I'm Debra Humphris. I'm the Vice Provost at Imperial College London, so I'm Vice Provost for Education. And hey, great Twitter going on about this, great questions. So I want to say thank you to Pierre for the opportunity to come and put another position in terms of MOOCs. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, actually, and very pleased. It's been very helpful to sit and take a reflective step, to think and step back about where we are in relation to MOOCs and the bigger picture about the digital environment that we're hurtling towards, much of which has actually been invented and created by universities. So what I want to talk about is learning in a digital and connected world. So let me first tell you about Imperial College. We have lots of online stuff. We have lots of the dumb pipeline for the videos and lecture capture. We have lots of online, a whole medical program delivered in Singapore via an iPad. Lots of innovative things, but we haven't joined a MOOC yet. And the reason for that is because strategy must lead these decisions, I believe, at an institutional level. But I'm not going to focus on Imperial for this discussion. I want to focus on 4 issues, really, is to reflect on the context in which we all find ourselves, to just look at some of the issues about progress and myths in this digital environment, focusing far more on the notion of a digital ecosystem, and a final comment about speaking truth unto power. I've chosen the issue about why digital ecosystem. So this is from a paper from actually some computer scientists at Imperial. And the reason why I want to focus on the notion of a digital ecosystem is that I see the digital world much as Briscoe and de Wilde do, is it's like the biological ecosystem. It is self-organizing. It has properties that will adapt, survive, grow. Some will flourish, some won't. It will be self-organizing. It may have scalable architectures, it may not. And all of that should be focused around solving complex problems, about dynamic problems, about enabling inquiry and engagement, about enabling the talent of people to come to this digital world and to apply their genius. So in terms of taking a position which is about a digital ecosystem, I see MOOCs as one manifestation of that, which themselves may engender many other manifestations. This is an example, this is from a storage company. So this company is involved in digital storage. And this is just an illustration of today's digital marketing ecosystem. I'm absolutely sure, since the time that this was produced, there are probably about 30% more developments, apps, connections. And one wonders how anyone can keep a holistic view or picture of that. And again, like the biological system, things continue to evolve. This thing is not controllable. So it will continue, people will continue to apply their genius to create more and innovative developments. Everybody aware of all of those? No, okay. So let me put this in context in terms of education innovation. So educational innovation, it seems to me, and Simon in some ways illustrated it with the Open University, you will all have experiences from your own institutions and from the schools that your children go to and from the way you learn as adult learners. Education innovation has always been driven by the possibilities of our imagination, or sometimes the limitations of our imagination. It's been driven by a desire to learn, and we see that desire to learn becoming more widespread, more important as people can access it. The desire has probably always been there. What the digital world is potentially enabling is for more people to access education and to contribute to their learning. That's been enabled by technologies of the time. So not so long ago, it shows my age, the whiteboard, the interactive whiteboard was the next big thing. Now they're everywhere. So technology shapes and enables pedagogy and learning. So the Open University in its time in 1963 was seen as extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary in the UK and open universities in other countries. Many trade unions across the world have played significant roles in opening up education in a whole range of ways to their workers and members. Organisations like Cisco, in terms of the Learning Society, many corporates for many years have focused on how they develop their learners, their workers. So the massive piece has been there in many ways previously. I think the open question is extremely well put. Open access is enabled, access enabled by our current digital environment still presents significant barriers and inequality of access. It's fine if you've got an internet connection. It's fine if you can actually get into a platform to deliver your fantastic materials, no matter what the size or scale of your organisation. But not everybody has access. Not everybody, I suspect, is going to get access. So this notion that we will reach to everybody will be constrained by the technologies, the power, the infrastructure, and in many cases, people's ability to pay a bill. So let's be careful about the use of the term open. And courses, so just using the acronym about MOOCs, these are elements of learning, of value in their own right, for people to engage with some materials about the First World War and to reflect on their own experiences, to maybe contribute to that, may actually be fantastically powerful and valuable in its own right for that particular individual. But it's also about a portfolio-based approach to learning, thinking about lifelong and life-wide learning. And for many institutions, that itself is a step maybe beyond their mission or redefining and reshaping their mission. So we need to think about massive open and courses I think, in slightly more thoughtful way. It would not be possible to look at the area of MOOCs without actually reflecting on some of the emerging evidence. Now, these are a new phenomena. We are at very early days. So this evidence has to be taken in that context. But a recent study from the University of Pennsylvania Graduate School of Education, a fairly reasonable research track record there, in the work that they looked at, and the MOOCs that they looked at, the courses, only 50% of those who registered on the course ever viewed a lecture, and only about 4% completed. Now, that may be different for Coursera or iUniversity or FutureLearn or heaven knows what else. But the study identified that 80% of those taking MOOCs already had earned a degree of some kind. So I go back to my open. So this is fine. Simon's point was well made, that actually many people may not be aware of MOOCs, may not have access. So I'm back to my questions about open and about access and about availability. So we are at very early days. But one would anticipate then, the other point that is, I think Pennsylvania highlighted rather carefully, was that the proportion of users were disproportionately educated, male and wealthy. So as one of the other half of the population, maybe we're seeing a gender bias here. How do we reach to those who are not wealthy, who can't access, who don't have that privilege? Are we just continuing to privilege? All of these are really challenging questions that we need to consider if we really want to take forward open, accessible learning to connect with learners across the world. I'm not saying I know the answers, but we must watch the evidence and think about the implications of what we're doing. So, myths and progress. Great that we've picked on the same quote. So Diane Laurent, in a recent paper in the Times Higher Education supplement, herself a professor of e-learning and technology, so this is her area of discipline and study, identified a set of questions about MOOCs and made the same comment that people, the nature, the opportunity that very intelligent people have to leave their brains behind when it comes to technology. So let's just put that comment aside for one moment and just look at her 5 questions. The notion that content is free. Well, content might be made freely available, but content gets generated by somebody. And if I were being very careful, I would say if that's being generated by the academic community of a university, it's not free. Please let's, you might make it freely available, but it's not generated free. All of this has a resource implication at the end of the day. Signing up for a MOOC and investing in that material development to that high quality is not free. It comes with a cost. She also looked at the issue about students supporting each other and actually whether that was viable and possible. As terms of MOOCs as a sort of to solve the problem of expensive undergraduate education, she was not convinced. In some areas of undergraduate education, a MOOC won't replace it. And I don't think we probably believe that that's going to be the case in all types of undergraduate provision in university. I am absolutely sure there will be more, and there is already a greater proportion of blended. But if I think about the very, very practical questions in terms of, for example, in my own university, the issue about teaching chemistry, at the end of the day, the chemical industry wants chemists who can fill a flat-bottom flask effectively. And those sorts of very practical, lab-based, experimental skills can be augmented and supported, I'm sure, but I would hesitate to think they can be replaced. And she also questions about whether education is not a mass customer industry. I have a regular dialogue with our students about the fact that no matter how much we charge, they pay, the essence of learning is a co-inquiry. It's co-creating your learning. No matter how much you pay for the textbook, carrying it won't put it in your head. It's engaging with the materials. It's co-producing. It's bringing your piece of learning to the inquiry. So I think there are plenty of skeptics in the market. And I've been watching with interest the sort of feed coming through the wireless campus as part of the online chronicle. And it's really quite interesting. If you just capture the headlines, I know these are the headlines on one online narrative, but it's really interesting to see how the narrative is changing from MOOCs were marvellous and wonderful, and now some of the concerns are beginning to creep in, some of the cautions, some of the thoughtfulness about actually how exactly will students take these courses, will credit emerge, who will give it, all of those logical questions that, as with any new initiative, when we have time to reflect and think on it, we need to think these things through. So maybe all that glistens may not be potentially gold, but it's definitely changing the environment and the debate. And then there is the issue about, in terms of progress, and Simon touched upon it, what I would describe as a new hegemony. It seems really challenging and really important to continue to consider where power lies in higher education or in education. I think this is quite an interesting illustration of the penetration of the market, might I say, of MOOCs at this point in time. So does this mean then that if you're not in Coursera, my colleagues comment, if you're not in Coursera, what does that mean for you? Do we then start creating an educational environment in which the relative importance of your MOOC or your platform, because these are platforms, are defined by whether you're with the big one or several, or which? How does this enable new people to come to the market? I had a recent meeting with my colleagues in the League of European Research Universities, the Vice Rector's Education. We meet on a regular basis. And we're preparing a paper for the European Commission on e-learning. And it was really interesting talking to my colleagues around the table to hear who was with who and who was not with who. So how people make those judgments, how we use and what the value add of these particular providers is, or whether this is an impact of their forceful marketing. Who knows? But what it does show is that maybe there's an hegemony in the environment, and that's changing and shifting, and how do we respond to that? So I was reflecting the other day on the way back from this conversation about this paper that we're going to produce for the European Union, and thought I must in some way try and capture all that I'm beginning to hear about what I'd call the digital age, the early years. So we've got big data, open data, OER, citizen science, iTunes U, digital humanities, Blackboard, Moodle, VLEs, online, offline, digital divide, mobiles, tablets, apps, appathons, hacks, hacked, Wikipedia, wireless, NSA, Panopto, Facebook, Bebo, co-inquiry, co-create, crowdsourced, gamify, storify, Twitter, platform, spook, mook, duke, nuke. And my favourite, which is YAR. And for those of you not completely engaged with the non-digital literature, YAR just simply means yet another acronym. So it's hardly any wonder that this flourish of creativity and innovation has come to the digital environment. And I'm back to my original slide with all those multiple marketing channels. We have all these multiple ways in which to engage, all of which, in terms of a digital ecosystem, are inherently beyond our control. So let me think about a digital ecosystem and in terms of learning. So the core in terms of this, it seems to me, from a university perspective, is what's the curriculum? What are we trying to help someone achieve? What's the pedagogy that we use in order to enable that interaction and that learning? How do we use technology, which we've been doing for years in a range of ways, ever since the invention of chalk and the board, and for whom many mathematicians, any mathematicians in the room? Any mathematicians still use chalk? Yes, chalk is still in vogue, isn't it? Yeah, chalk and the board still works. Technology, so using technology to promote inquiry between the learner and the academic community and between as part of the curriculum. And what's the impact of that at the end? Well, it seems to me that in a digital ecosystem, there are extraordinary new opportunities opening up. We're shifting the paradigm from consumption to co-creation. Our students invent brilliant stuff all the time. They bring fantastic insights to their learning. If this means that we have deeper learning tasks, if learning is deepened because of that, and technology enables that, that's fantastic. And actually, it's difficult to stop people who are really motivated to learn. I know that many of our students take MOOC courses from a range of providers across the world. Fine. None of them asked me for credit yet. So this is about discovery and co-creation. That can be no bad thing. If technology enables that in a digital environment, that's no bad thing. And if that's about solving real problems, then again, that promotes people's inquiry, that promotes the social benefit of the learning experience. So what we see out of that, or what I see out of that, is social innovation and really important data generation, and how that data then gets used to ask even deeper questions, to solve problems. Here's an example. Are you familiar with micromappers? No. Okay, so the Qatar Research Institute, we had a fantastic presentation recently from the head of the Qatar Computer Research Institute, talking about the way in which micromappers acts as crowdsourcing to address issues in disaster recovery. So I'll come to that in a minute. So again, in a digital ecosystem, there is more to do. Here's a great example. This came to me only last week. This is the speed at which the world is moving. So this is a real beneficial, it seems to be, educational social innovation. So EduKit is an online platform being created by a group of social entrepreneurs who've left Apple, young people in London wanting to marry up the resources that are disparate and distributed in the charity sectors to support education and the achievement of young people, through to enabling them with schools. Schools are inundated or unable to take out the wheat from the chaff to work out what are the resources out there they could use to support young people of need and disadvantage. This is going to be, I think, a fantastically brilliant initiative in which data from schools can connect with charities, so EduKit becomes the intermedium to be able to connect the resources and facilities are being offered in the charity sector, which is many and varied, to provide a sort of TripAdvisor style interface to support young people and schools to enable them to access resources that will help their achievement. This, for me, is really about adaptive and personalised learning. It's about mobilising social resources, a sort of education playlist for an individual student. And these are kids in schools. And what I'm really interested in is actually how do we help that generate, the generation for whom these, the purpose of these, is to text and to game. That's why we have an opposable thumb. The other areas around a digital ecosystem, the whole area of citizen science, crowdsourcing know-how in science. So Galaxy Zoo, global collaboration, engaging citizens in helping classify galaxies and material, being able to process and engage with material at a speed and a pace that scientists previously would not have been able to do, and engaging the public, having a social impact, communicating our science. Now, micromappers, I talked about micromappers earlier. So micromappers is a group of people who use tweet data. And they've been doing so through Hurricane Sandy and the disaster in the Philippines most recently, where actually they crowdsource verification of Twitter pictures in order to identify priorities for the UN, to help the UN make decisions about where best to place their rescue resources, their disaster recovery resources. It's a massive online effort. Patrick, who came to give a presentation about this at Imperial just a couple of weeks ago, we had 3 14-year-olds in the front row, local lads from a school, no great privilege, fascinated by this. They were going off to join in because they can make judgments, they can get involved. They were going to get their schools involved. And in a digital ecosystem, that's as powerful learning as probably signing up to a MOOC, I'd suggest. But it's just one part of a bigger ecosystem. So in terms of the digital ecosystem, I think the real opportunities lie around, and we've only started on all of this. You know, what Wendy Hall and Nigel Shadbolt and Tim Berners-Lee let loose, we will find out still in years to come. But big and open data is going to be, I think, the really exciting area. Citizen engagement in research and action, and through that, learning and inquiry. Analytics about learning, analytics the like of which we've never had before. But with that also comes, I might not want you to know all my analytics. There's some fantastic privacy issues in all of this, which we probably need to talk to the NSA about. But there we are. And adaptive and personalised learning, allowing people to create and co-create their learning experience. That, for universities, is a real challenge. But to a certain extent, we've been doing it for some time, but now we need to get sharper and brighter about it. And one of the reasons why Imperial College London has not yet joined a platform is because we're going to be driven by strategy, not by platform. It's important that we're clear about what our proposition to our students is, and then we can make a decision about the how. And the perturbations that you see caused by all of this digital necessitate adaptation and enhancement. So diversity absolutely will remain. So go back to my slide about the dominance of Coursera at the moment. Diversity will just continue to grow. Somebody in this audience tomorrow will invent something brilliant that in a year's time we'll all be going, wow, we were in the room when they tweeted that or something. I mean, the recent NMC report just out last week about how the digital ecosystem will evolve. Again, the emerging trends, absolutely, the ubiquity of social media and the rise of data-driven learning and assessment. So none of this will stand still. I don't think we will ever rest, and we'd be probably bored to death if we did rest. So what I'm suggesting in terms of thinking about truth under power, because as power shifts, the hegemony reforms, we need to think about the questions and the challenges that we place. You know, a digital age is transformative, and as such, it will not rest. An ecosystem doesn't cease to develop. The orthodoxy is change. Open is precisely that. There should be few barriers. Anyone can be a player. There are many challenges to all forms of education providers. Anybody can now play. That's fine. So we all need to be really clear about what's our piece within that. Simon's comment about quality assurance was really important. Do we care about the standards of what's put out there? How do we assure that? I know Anthony McLaren was here yesterday, but we really seriously need to think about what are the quality standards for online, or are we all happy to consent to the fact that it's down to the individual institution, if it is an institution, and in which case, how does Cisco quality assure? Is there some way in which we might come together about some standards that learners can expect? I think data mining is the new primary industry. Because mining, as we know it, certainly in the UK, I think has gone, but data mining is the new one. The ability to extract and utilise the data that's generated is going to be an extraordinary opportunity. And I see our bright students doing it all the time. I was recently talking to our School of Medicine who wanted to buy some software to do some curriculum mapping, and they'd found a supplier, and it was obviously going to be a beta version, which means we'd have another bill and another bill and another bill. And so I said to them, actually, the thing you want to do is think about £500, an endless pizza, and a hackathon with our iCreate student group. Apart from the fact that they weren't clear that they could do that, our students created a platform and an ability to do exactly what the School of Medicine wanted over a weekend. We'll obviously have to put it to an enterprise level, but it's using the genius that we have within our institutions. And as the power within a digital age shifts, we need to speak truth under power. I thought the question from my colleague about small institutions was precisely that, an illustration of, in a new and digital age, as new power groupings form, how do we continue to speak truth unto them? And the Business and Innovation Department of the UK government last year produced a report about the maturing of MOOCs. Passionately interested in them as they are, and very supportive of FutureLearn. But they were very clear that the business model will become a burning issue because this is not free. It all has to be paid for somehow. And in a UK higher education environment in which just yesterday the government announced more cuts to higher education, we need to think really carefully about how we do this. So, a digital age is transformative, and as such, it will not rest. The orthodoxy is change. Every second, this was an interesting fact from our business school last week, every second, the global community that has access generates 100,000 tweets and 48 hours of video content uploaded to YouTube. In the time that I've spoken, 180 million tweets, probably quite a few I hope from here, have been uploaded. There are another 86,000 hours of YouTube. That would take 10 person years to watch. Anybody volunteering? No. We can never get a handle on all of these things. So the digital ecosystem, I think, will continue to adapt and evolve. And that we're not, and it's impossible to anticipate or control, as we well know from major issues in the media, how that will move. We hope it will be in ways that will enhance lives and societies. It will not always necessarily be so. And MOOCs I see as one considerable and important manifestation of this, but they are one manifestation of a much wider digital environment. Thank you.